All right, so let's make sure we have good audio. Yeah, I think that's right. And this looks right. Is that right? Speaker. Yeah, that's got to be it. Okay. So the plan is to do for this video just the train body. There's enough going on there to make it worth an entire video. So the way the plan is, or the plan is for making the train body, and the way you think about modeling any sort of item or anything is thinking about it in smaller sort of chunks. And the path for this, I would say, is make this shape right here, which is a rectangle and a circle, even though this arc right here is dimensioned by its radius, because when it's done, it is an arc. We are going to use the full circle tool with a diameter that's twice that. And we try to lean towards rectangle and circle rather than lines and arcs, because they'll always be closed loops and easy to extrude. So we're going to make that shape or that sketch and extrude it the full distance front to back. And then we'll add the cabin, which you actually, in order to make it, you need to look at the second drawing, which shows how tall it is. It's the roof is actually an arc dimension from the center point of this hitch hole and extruded forward. And then there's a couple other features, the holes on the side, the hole for the smokestack, the hole for the hitch peg, all that stuff. So let's get going. Okay, so first we are going to try and make the shape, the sketch, the two-dimensional sketch that would be the front of this. And it's going to be a combination of a rectangle and a circle. So let's go ahead and get a new part file going. And we'll start a sketch. And this is the front of the train, so we might as well start on the XY plane. Doesn't really matter for relatively simple things. So we'll start a sketch on the XY plane. And how big does this rectangle need to be? Well, the width of the entire thing, I'm just gonna have to zoom in like this. And these dimensions are called stack dimensions, and where everything is dimensioned from one side. And it's a nice way to keep dimensions neat and clean. And when you have a lot of dimensions on the same drawing, it's a good thing, but you do need to be able to sort of follow what's going on. And this widest dimension is 2 inches wide. It's measuring the distance from the left side of the rectangle to the right side. So our rectangle needs to be 2 inches wide, and its height is, if you measure out from this edge right here, its height is 0.875. So let's go ahead and make a rectangle. Get a 2-point rectangle, starts here, dimension 2 inch wide and 0.875 tall. And now the arc, we know the arc is a radius of 0.75, but like I said, we're going to use the full circle tool so that it always extrudes. So the dimension of the circle is going to be 1.5 because the diameter. The key is the location of the center point. And if you follow this line straight down, you can see that the center point is 1 inch from the left, which is the same as halfway, otherwise known as centered. And the center point of that circle is 1.375 up off of the lowest point. So those dimensions need to be added. Let's go circle. And if we do a circle, we'll actually get sort of a soft snap to centered. I thought we would, yeah, but we're still going to need to dimension it. So the circle, since its diameter needs to be 1.5, the distance from the center point of the circle to the bottom of everything is 1.375. And the distance of the center of the circle to the left of everything should be 1, which you'll probably get a snap like that. Let's finish sketch and extrude. Choose this, we'll choose everything. And it doesn't really matter if you switch directions, but I'm going to switch direction just because that way front will be the front of the train. Or actually, it doesn't really matter because you can put the cab on the other side. And so we are going to extrude our sketch is this, and we want to extrude it the whole length, even past, well, I'm going to extrude it the whole length, even past where the cab is, because the cab is just going to build on top of it. So this extrusion needs to be the full distance front to back, which is 5.5. Distance 5.5. Okay, next, let's build the cab. The cab is the sides of the cab are just vertical lines, or vertical edges continuing from what we already have. And the roof is an arc that is 2.35 inches from the center point of this hitch hole. But in order to do that, it makes more sense to make the hitch peg hole first, because then we'll be able to snap it from there. The size of this hole is 1/4 inch diameter. It's 0.5 deep. It's 1 inch from the left, which is the same as being centered. And it's 0.375 down, up from the bottom. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's switch around to the back. You don't have to if you didn't, but that'll keep back and front the same. So we want a circle that is 0.25. The distance from the center point to the bottom, 0.375. The distance from the center point to the left is 1. And we'll finish sketch, extrude, choose the circle, switch it to cut, and we only want to cut 0.5 like it said. All right, now for the cab, I'm going to do a sketch on the back, and the shape I want to make is something like this, okay, and extrude it forward. I don't know the length of these lines. All I know is that they go straight up from what we already have until it reaches this arc. And the arc is 2.35. So I can just I can either do a circle that's twice this, or what's called a 3-point arc, not a 3-point arc, a center point arc. So if I use, do I have a snap there? I do. If I go to arc and do center point arc, the first click is where I want the arc to be centered, which I want the arc to be centered on the center of this hitch hole. And I want to make sure that it starts past everything to the left. So there's my second click. And my third click is past it to the right. Let's put on the dimension, which is 2.35. Is that what it was? And then I just need lines to close it off. So I can snap to this top left corner and go straight up until it reaches that arc. And same thing here, snap to the top right corner, go straight up till it reaches that arc. And hopefully when I do finish sketch, it will let me extrude that shape, and it will. And I want to extrude it the other direction. So I need to change direction, not switch it to cut. There's nothing to cut. Change direction. And the distance I want to extrude it is 1.75, which the distance from the back to the front edge of the cab is 1.75. And so let's extrude it 1.75. Okay, so the remaining things, we have holes on the side for the axles. We have holes in the front for the cow catcher. And we have sort of this thing back here, the cab part, and we have a hole for the smokestack. So we have 4 more things to do. Let's get to it. Holes on the side, we have these holes, okay, there, you can see what it's pointing to. 1/4 inch diameter, 20 UNC has to do with the threading, which if you watched the axle peg walk through it, we talked about threading. 0.875 deep and times 4 means 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, their distance from the bottom is 0.5. And their distance from this one from the back is 1. And this one from the back is 4.5, which is the same thing as saying 1 from the front. So they're sort of balanced that way. And they're the same on both sides, which means we can save some time and do project geometry for the second side. But either way, I need one circle that's 0.25 over here, another one that's around here, 0.25. Distance from the center point to the bottom is 0.5 for both. Distance from the center point to the back is 1, and the distance from this center point to the back is 4.5. Finish sketch, extrude, choose just the circles. Switch it to cut, and cut distance was 0.875. And you could do the exact same thing on the other side, or a shortcut would be, so we need to start a sketch there. If we look back around at the front and do project geometry and click on this face, when I go back to the first side, there will be circles right where they need to be, which is good because they are, symmetrical. So I can go ahead and extrude these. Switch it to cut. It's already 0.875. Fantastic. All right, let's do the sort of passenger compartment thing there. This is an arc that is 0.5. Again, we're going to use the circle tool just because it will always let us extrude. The center point is 1.75 from the ground or the bottom of everything. And it is also 0.25. The center point is 0.25 from the back. So we're going to start with a circle that's 1 inch because instead of an arc, we want a full circle. Let's go ahead and make a sketch. And make sure when you do this, you don't snap the circle to the back edge because it won't let you move it. It's not flush against the back. It's a little bit in. In fact, it's a 1/4 inch in. So we need this to be a 1 inch circle. So when it's an arc, it's 0.5. The distance from the center point to the back, 0.25. And what was it? 1.75 off the ground. And that is not enough because if you look at this, if I do finish sketch, extrude, choose the circle, switch it to cut all the way through. If I do that, then it leaves this little tail here, which is technically not part of what's going on here. So before I do the extrusion, let's go and spin it back around. Before I finish sketch, I'm going to go back and edit sketch. I need to make a shape that will cut this off. And so I'm just going to get a rectangle, find the top center of my circle and go down, snap it to the back edge, but flush with the bottom of the circle. So the rectangle will now include that. I'm going to finish sketch, extrude, choose the circles and the rectangles and the little bits there. And switch it to cut and cut through all. And there is that. Okay, 2 other features, the 3 holes in the front and probably the trickiest part, the hole for the smokestack on the top. The holes in the front are all an 1/8 inch diameter. That's what this is. Diameter 1/8 inch, depth 1/8 inch times 3 means 1, 2, 3. So they're all 1/8 inch circles. The bottom ones, if you follow this line over, are 0.125 off the ground. The top one is 0.625 off the ground. The left one is 0.375 from the left, The right one is 1.625 from the left, which is also 0.375 from the right. And the top one is centered left to right. You don't have to memorize that. Let's just go ahead and do a sketch on the front. I need 3 circles that are roughly in the right place that are, I don't want to snap to that. 0.125, which you can dimension as you are typing. 0.1. 0.125, 0.125. Okay, and the distance from the center point to the bottom here was 0.125, I think. Is that right? Yeah, the bottom ones are both 0.125 from the bottom, and the center one is 0.625 from the bottom. Okay, and then their distance from the side, the center of this one to the side is 0.375. The center of this one to the side is 1, which it's already going to be there if you snapped it. And the distance from the center to this side for this one is 1.625. And if you're dimensioning correctly, it'll probably look something like what's on the drawing. We'll finish sketch, extrude, zoom in so we can get just the circles. Switch it to cut, and distance of cut is 0.125. Okay, and the last part feature is the hole for the smokestack. It is simply a hole that is 0.5 in diameter, 0.25 deep. The center point is 0.875 from the front, and that's easy, except the problem is we're trying to do it on a curved surface. And this is the tricky part. You can't put a sketch on a curved surface. What you can do is create a new work plane that is like directly on top of this. And then on that work plane, we can sketch a circle and cut into the boiler. So this is relatively advanced stuff. We need to, before we can sketch anything, we need to make a new work plane. And the one we want is tangent to a surface parallel to a plane. The surface we want tangent to is the curve of the boiler. And the surface we want parallel to is either the base here, or you can click on the bottom also. Either way, we want a horizontal plane. So just click on something that's horizontal, like this sort of ledge here. Now we have a work plane that is flat, it's horizontal, and it's directly touching the top of that arc. So we can start sketch, click on the work plane just like you would with the XY plane at the beginning. Let's turn off the visibility of the work plane. We don't need that anymore. What we do need is the ability to draw our circle perfectly centered. And in order to have something to dimension to, we need to do project geometry and click on the front face. And what that's going to do is project that edge, or that face gets projected as a line. And now we can snap to that. I'm going to get a line just to find the center point, the exact center point of this, which is like that. Right about there, and go straight back. And I'm going to use the other end of this line as the center point for the circle. The line is 0.875 back from the front. So I'm just going to go ahead and dimension that line, 0.875, and then a circle that starts on the end of that line, and the diameter of that circle is 0.5. And we'll finish sketch, extrude, choose that circle, which is the only thing at this point. I'll choose it, switch it to cut. If you chose the bottom of the train as your parallel plane for the new work plane, you may need to switch it to cut and then switch direction. Sometimes when you switch to cut, it will try to switch it so that you're cutting the air. and that will give you an error. So you need to make sure it's uncut and that it's whichever direction points down. And the depth of the cut was 0.25. Hit OK. And that is the train body. I think that's it. Yep. There you go. Good luck.